We're at the second ARC Summit in Ireland to think about issues particularly revolving around well-being for young people and for their teachers. Amongst us we have senior policymakers, professional leaders from 10 different systems, 9 different countries. One of the ways we can be good leaders, which is what all of you are and many of you watching this video will be. One of the ways that we can be good leaders is by drawing upon ourselves and our own experiences, even those, and sometimes especially those, that are difficult, and connecting them to the experiences of other people who may be different from ours. It is to draw, to acknowledge, and to listen, and to engage. Part of that process is engaging with our own and with other people's emotions. So I have 3 questions to ask you at the beginning, and I hope through the remainder of this short presentation you'll think about them and then think about them again when we come to the end. What is your ethnocultural identity? How does this affect how you experience and express your emotions? What impact does that have on how you behave and interact professionally with the others around you? What is your ethnocultural identity? How does that affect how you experience and express your emotions? What impact does that have on the other people around you with whom you interact professionally? Why am I particularly interested in this question? Well, at the moment there is a surge, and some would say a resurgence, of interest in the educational field in what we variously call well-being or social and emotional learning. We have many different conceptions of this, but a key part of it is about our emotions. We are trying to teach our children now in many places, sometimes through a very explicit curriculum, how to know, how to express, and especially how to manage and moderate their emotions. In the work we're doing on investigating well-being across 10 school systems, we're beginning to understand and look at how that plays out in the classrooms of students of all kinds in all places. And this reflects at the student level a trend there was in the early 1990s and onwards to do the very same thing amongst adults, and influenced by psychologists such as Daniel Goleman and before him Martin Seligman. We became very interested then in what we call emotional intelligence or emotional competencies. The idea was that we could improve people's effectiveness and happiness by training them psychologically in how to manage and moderate and also express and empathize with particular kinds of emotions. And one of the ways we see this in many classrooms, to good effect in some ways, is by helping children become calm, deal with their anger, cope with their anxiety, bring themselves out of depression. And the Disney movie is everywhere in the classrooms that we see. Children know, children of 6 or 7 years old, know whether they're blue, whether they're red, whether they're yellow, and how to stop being red and become whatever the right color is. I think it's yellow, as quickly as you can. And this is having some positive impacts. The kids who used to be sent down the hall for bad behavior and would spend hours in detention are now being sent down less frequently, and they're spending half their time that they used to spend there. And they have someone with them rather than just sitting in isolation. There are some good effects of this, but it's not enough, and it's not always the right thing. How do we know? Because 20 years ago, we did a project with 50 teachers on the emotions of teaching. And we didn't regard emotions like the psychologists as things that were within us, that would come out or have to be controlled in some way. But we understood, like the anthropologists, that emotions were things that were between us in our relationships with each other. So with these 50 teachers, we asked them questions like, could you describe times when you felt emotionally positive or emotionally negative with colleagues, with administrators, with parents, and with children? And in all the questions and in all the stories they told us, we found some key things. We found that purposes were very important in the emotions between us. That if people, teachers, had control over their purposes, if they felt they were taking the initiative, not responding to other people's initiatives, if they felt there was a clear purpose, not many purposes that were all over the map, if they felt there were their purposes rather than purposes that belonged to someone else, then they experienced positive emotion. The purposes were chaotic, out of their control, then they experienced negative emotion. And secondly, we found that teachers experienced positive emotion when they felt in control, when they were empowered, when they were doing the things that were important for them and the children that they knew. And when they felt the administrator was telling them what to do, or the government was telling them what to do, or the curriculum was prescribed, or it was standardised, or they were teaching the wrong kinds of things that were required, then they felt negative emotion. And then we found a third thing, and that was about culture. And we found some fascinating things about culture. A simple one was, if you have bad relationships or no relationships, then you will have negative emotion. But it's more complicated than that. Because remember, we asked the questions, what is your ethnocultural identity? How does this affect how you experience and express emotions? How does that impact on your relations with others professionally? And what teachers said to us, many, many teachers, was they said, oh, I have an ethnocultural identity, and it affects me this particular way. Japanese teachers, Japanese Canadian teachers, would say they felt quiet and restrained and had to be polite. And other people were often noisy and full of words all around them. Or French Canadians would say, I like to express myself with my body all the time. Our children, they love to run and play and skip. And they were talking about 14-year-olds, not 7-year-olds. Because that's very characteristic of a highly expressive French-Canadian culture. In Canada, French Canadians often regard identity as more important than achievement. They regard identity as more important than achievement. And in work we are doing currently for the WISE Foundation, which we've just completed on professional collaboration, we're learning how different it is to collaborate in different countries. In Colombia, people love to get engaged in Latin American, intellectual, political discussion around why they are teaching and what their relationship is to the government. In Hong Kong, the principal and her teachers collaborate, and the principal sits there and she orchestrates exactly when the teachers on her right and left-hand side are to come in as part of the performance. Their cultures are not right or wrong, they're just different. And if you're Finnish, we didn't get to go to Finland as part of this study, but every night my wife, who is here, reads out to me in bed. It's a strange thing that we do, but it's fun. She reads out to me passages from a book called Shrinking Violets, which is about people who are shy. And one of the most memorable passages is that the Inuit have hundreds of words for snow. The Welsh have hundreds of words for rain. And the Finns have hundreds of words for embarrassment. Because there are so many ways in which Finnish people can feel embarrassed compared to the rest of us all around. There are many ways to be emotionally. The thing we found in our Canadian data was that everybody felt they had an ethnocultural identity. This is 20 years ago. Except white Canadians from English, Welsh, and Scottish heritage. And they said, I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian. I don't have a particular emotionality. Now I understand that other people do, And I understand I have to make allowances for children who are different, children who are indigenous, children who are black. I have to interact with them in a different way. But their emotionality was either universal or neutral. So when I go into classrooms now, and I see classrooms with indigenous students, or refugee students, or students of many different emotionalities, and the main aim of the cognitive psychological curriculum is to make children calm and to make them quiet. Is this because of what is right or appropriate or engaging for those children? Or is this because of what makes a classroom more easy, more manageable, or more orderly for the teacher who is probably often more white than their students are? So, what is your ethnocultural identity? How does it affect you emotionally? What is the impact on the people that you serve? Our emotions are not universal. They're not neutral. They're particular for all of us. The point is to draw on our own understanding of our emotions. The point is to engage with other people's emotions as well. And the point as policymakers is to create an environment, a curriculum, inclusiveness, a picture of leadership and the diversity of leadership that reflects that very basic aim that is essential to achievement, identity, and well-being.